This is Norman Kissinger from Redeeming the Time Brothers Ministries, and we're continuing with our talk on what to do when life fails you. When things happen that are so stressful, not the normal stresses of life, but something happens so stressful and so upsetting and life-shattering that you can barely function. The loss of a loved one, some other tragedy that happens in our life. The truth of the matter is that life will fail us. And as I said in the very first one, if you listen to the first broadcast of this, you'll see that I was talking about how that I was looking for ways to talk about how life fails people with funeral sermons, which are very hard to do for a pastor. And I came across a concept or an idea that, quite frankly, the truth is that we can look to God, look to ourselves, look to the circumstances, look to a lot of things. But the bottom line is that as humans, because of the sin nature and sin in the world, we just have to come to grips with the fact that life just fails us. And we didn't necessarily do anything to deserve it. We didn't do anything to ask for it. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, you're smart or dumb, or it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're good or bad. Life will fail you. That's the common human experience in this sinful world. And so we've been talking about different ways to deal with life when it is failing us. And the next concept I want to talk about is the concept of telling God exactly how you feel. And I think that a lot of times when we go through these kind of trials and things, we often somehow believe that we don't have the right to do that, especially we as Christians who want to reverence God. So I think the two things that happen is that either a person will do kind of to look at it from two wrong perspectives. Either they hate God and won't speak to him, or they'll curse him, or they will be afraid to say anything to him because it would be wrong to do so. And I think both of those approaches are actually wrong. I think if you look at Scripture and you look at all the prayers that happened and communication between man and God in the Old and New Testaments, you'll see that it was very intimate, that the men and women who prayed to God prayed in very intimate type of ways. They weren't afraid to express their heart. If they had questions or they didn't understand what was going on, they weren't afraid to ask God or say, what's up? Why is this taking place? You can probably see that easiest in the Psalms and reading the Psalms that David had done, and you'll see it most commonly there. But you can see this concept no matter where you're at in the Scripture. You'll see the idea of men who have a relationship with God are willing to tell him what their heart is and what they're thinking and their pain. And I of course, I'm not saying that we should be disrespectful to God or curse him, but God's a big boy. He's more than able to listen to our complaints and our concerns. You haven't been a Christian for longer than 3 minutes that you haven't had some question that you've asked God that he just didn't seem to want to answer, there wasn't an answer for, or some problem in life that seemed unsolvable. And so there's no reason to hide it from God. If you're mad at God, it isn't like that you can hide it from him. In fact, part of an intimate relationship is saying, God, I'm mad at you. Why did you do this? What right do you have to do this? Why is this going on in my life? What did I do to you? Why did you allow this to happen? Those kind of questions are normal questions that people would ask anytime that they're suffering with anything. And I just recommend that we are willing to just be honest with God, because he wants an honest relationship. He says, in the book of Revelation with the Laodicean church, he said that he would rather they be cold or hot, not that they be lukewarm. And part of that lukewarmness would almost not just be kind of a lukewarmness about their Christianity, but also a pretending that they had more of a relationship or a different type of relationship than what they had. And so we should be willing to be completely honest with God. Now, again, I'm not saying we should be disrespectful. We're approaching the holy God of heaven, and certainly to be like the world would do, curse God or something like that would be, just a horrible thing to do. But there's certainly nothing wrong with us going to God and being completely honest with the things that are are happening in our lives and how we feel about it. If we're disappointed in him, we should say we're disappointed in him. If we're mad at him, we should say we're mad at him or angry at him for what he did or allowed or didn't allow or whatever in our lives. And that is a part of an honest relationship that we can have with God. So we'll continue with a few more of these thoughts that, as I've put together sermons over the years about lost loved ones and people that I cared about and people, my friends that have lost loved ones, some other things that I think are very helpful for us when we are to remember when we are in any kind of a loss, regardless if it's a loss of a loved one, that we remember these things and practice these principles so that we can get the most amount of benefit from even those tragedies. All things work together for good to those who love the Lord and are called according to his purposes. God bless you. Have a great weekend, and be sure to jump online and see all of my brother's videos and podcasts. He does a great job. He's a great pastor. Thank you for joining us, and you just have a great weekend.